All right, everyone online, we'll get started this evening. We'll start by calling the Committee of Adjustment hearing to order. Just before we get started, this is our first adventure into online meetings, so there's a couple little slight differences in the protocols to start things off. We're going to go through a roll call just to make sure the committee members are online and their microphones are working and I can see them. I know I can see them on my screen, but we'll do that first. So we can do that now if you're set to go. We'll go through Angie. You can hear and see?
I can. Hello, everyone.
Super. Eric, I can hear or see you.
I'm present.
And I can hear you now. And Donna?
I'm here.
Perfect. And
okay.
the only one sitting absent at the moment is Gary. If he should join, we'll introduce him once he comes into the meeting, and we'll go from there. So with that, we've been through testing all of the applicants. I believe they're all sitting in a waiting room on the side in the electronic meeting, and we will bring them in one at a time as we get to each one of their applications. In addition, as far as I know, there's no other public members that have contacted us to speak to any of the applications. They have sent some written correspondence that we'll read through for each application as we get there, as well as there's no one in the audience here as well that wishes or that has appeared as of yet. So with that, tonight we have 4 applications that we'll be hearing. The procedure for the actual meeting itself is similar to every other meeting that we have. The first order of business will be to ask if there's any conflicts of interest with any of the committee members and any of the applications. I'll ask for deferrals or withdrawals of applications that are on the agenda this evening. The committee secretary treasurer then will read out each application on the agenda with a brief description, staff recommendation, as well as any additional correspondence that's been received. The applicant or the agent will then be brought in at that point to the meeting. They can introduce themselves. They can add any additional comments that they wish to at that time. And following that, the committee members will then have an opportunity to ask the applicant any questions. And what I'll do is when we get to that stage, I will go through the committee members, or if you want to wave your hand or make funny faces at me or something like that, and we'll get you recognized so you can ask any questions that you might have. Followed, if there are members of the public that happen to show up, they will have their opportunity to have a say. We have provisions for that if they do show up. After that, the committee will then have the opportunity to ask any final questions. The applicant will then be allowed to add any final comments that they might have. I will then look to the committee to present a decision in the form of a motion. The motion will be discussed and voted upon. If a vote is tied, a motion will be defeated and a new motion will be made until we have a decision. It should also be noted that notices of decision will only be provided to those persons that leave their name and address with the Secretary Treasurer in the Planning Division. Since we're virtual this time, we are extending out for a day or two after the meeting to contact David Schultz in the Planning Department. His email is planner@portcolborne.ca, or you can call and leave a voice message, 905-835-2901, and his extension is 202 following the meeting, and you will receive a notice of decision for any application that you wish. It should also be advised that any possible local planning appeal tribunal hearings, to be made aware of those, you must request and be sent a copy of the committee's decision. So with that, I will ask if there's any conflicts of interest with any of the applications from the 3 members that are online. If you want to just raise your hand if you do have. Not seeing any. So with that, is there any requests for deferrals or withdrawals? And I'm going to assume there's none because they would have already said so in the preamble, and I know they're all waiting online to get in. So I'll take that as there's no there as well. So with that, I will turn it over to our Secretary Treasurer to read out the first application.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the first application we have is application number A25-19-PC regarding 405 Pinecrest minor variance. In the matter of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, as amended, and Section 11.3 C and G of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575/3018, as amended, and in the matter of the property legally known as plan of survey of part of road allowance between lots 14 and 15, Concession 1, Township of Humberstone, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, known as 405 Pinecrest and located in the LR Lakeshore Residential Zone. And in the matter of an application by the agent Joseph Tomeno for the owners Anthony and Connie Zapatelli for relief from the provisions of the zoning bylaw 6575/3018 as amended under Section 45 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, so as to permit an addition to an accessory building notwithstanding the following. I'd like to note that's a error there. That's an actual addition to the dwelling. Notwithstanding the following: that a minimum front yard setback of 0.36 meters for an existing boathouse be permitted where a minimum front yard setback of 10 meters is required, and that a maximum lot coverage of 18.1% be permitted, whereas a maximum lot coverage of 15% is required. The applicant is seeking permission for a single-story garage addition, as well as new sitting room, covered patios, and pool enclosure to an existing building on the property known as 405 Pinecrest. Due to the proposed lot coverage and front yard setback of the existing boathouse, the minor variances are required. So we do have some correspondence to read out here. I'll start with the correspondence from the Planning Division. So planning staff has reviewed the referenced application and offer the following comments for the hearing on Tuesday, June 9th. So at the time of writing this report, planning staff received comments from the Niagara region. They added some conditions that they would like to see. They will be mentioned at the end of the report. The Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority commented on the application the first time around when it came in December. They have advised us that their comments remain the same and their conditions also remain the same. The City of Port Colborne Building Division requests that a survey of the land prepared by an Ontario land surveyor is submitted with the building permit application, indicating the existing and proposed structures, as well as the building areas and setbacks of each structures. The Engineering Division has commented that the entrance radii is 12 meters wide and the allowable entrance width is 7.3 meters, so they have asked that entrance be reduced. So the Planning Division, the subject parcel is zoned Lakeshore Residential. The Lakeshore Residential Zone permits the detached dwelling and uses, structures, and buildings accessory thereto. There's also a portion of the property zoned hazard. The hazard zone permits a boathouse, boat ramp, conservation uses, existing agricultural uses, excluding buildings and structures, flood erosion and protection works, forestry uses, passive recreation use, and public use. The hazard zone is actually regulated by the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. There is a variety of minor variants that have happened on this property in the past. Just to alleviate the setbacks of the boathouse and the overhanging portion of it. It was brought to the attention that the overhanging portion is actually over the city road allowance. The previous owner entered into an encroachment agreement with the City of Port Colborne. When that owner moved on, the new owner will need to be required to enter into a new encroachment agreement to prove the insurance of the house and other requirements such as that. So the Planning Division recommends minor variance application A25-19 be approved for the following reasons. One, it is minor in nature as the front yard setback is being recognized for existing structures that have been approved, and increasing lot coverage is a reasonable and measured request appropriate for the development of the site, since the proposed construction is located in a suitable location on the site given the irregular shape of the lot, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as residential uses are permitted in the Lakeshore Residential Zone, and 4, desirable in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as residential uses are permitted in the rural designation. Subject to the following conditions: that the owner enters into an encroachment license agreement with the City of Port Colborne for the existing encroachment and fulfills all conditions of the agreement and encroachment bylaw 66652919. 2, that a survey prepared by an Ontario land surveyor be submitted with the building permit application. 3, that the variance is permitted for the addition only of a patio, not a sitting room, as it was outlined in the region's septic approval. 4, that sediment and erosion control fencing be installed along the eastern property line adjacent to the location of the proposed garage through the building permit application. 5, that the entrance on the city right-of-way be reduced to 7.3 meters. And 6, that the landowner obtains a work permit from the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority prior to beginning any work related to the development or site alteration. In support of the work permit application, the following information will be required. A detailed site plan showing means are provided to mitigate the wave uprush hazard for the sitting room. Example, shutters installed on the windows. B, means are provided to mitigate the 100-year flood hazard for the sitting room. No openings or construction within the structure below the regulatory 100-year flood elevation, and safe access and egress is provided. C, safety concerns due to the flood hazard are addressed for the covered patios. D, flood proofing is incorporated into the design for the pool enclosure. Signed, David Schultz, planner, reviewed by Kalina, Director of Planning and Development. After the Planning Division wrote the report, additional comments have come in from neighbors of the property. Colleen Jacek from 2334 Fire Lane 2, Port Colborne. Colleen has concerns with the lack of view of Cedar Bay. She notes that once she had a great view of the bay, now that the pool house and trees were planted, she lost 60% of the view. With the proposed addition, she's worried that she will lose all views. Not sure if this is the way to go, she says. Donna and Carrie Fallon. After nearly lifelong residents of the Pinecrest Road Fire Lane 2 community, we often frequent the public access and water at the end of Pinecrest Road. The impact of this addition will certainly obscure the very beautiful sunrises and sceneries that we often go to admire throughout the years. These spectacular vistas can even be seen through the trees from inside our house and on our front porch. The addition being proposed to expand and increase the height of an existing building adjacent to the water access would certainly impose and erase the natural beauty that presently exists today. This variance has many other impacts that we are also very concerned about. With the devastating winds and extremely high Lake Erie water levels over the past years, this proposal is not sound. There should be concern for wind damage and flooding. There have been many new builds over existing footprints for some residential homes along these fire lanes, but they have been built in the same footings as their original historic build, and most have very large properties. These builds have not had any negative effects to neighbors or the environment. To propose a height and linear expansion of an original build so extremely close to the shores of Lake Erie is not practical. We have chosen to live on Fire Lane 2 for so many reasons, mostly nature and the rural setting. We feel the current environmental changes, the impact on the neighbors, and also the community who frequent the beach should be deciding factors for the consideration of this variance. I also have correspondence from Frank and Margaret Scott. I do assure you that these were circulated to the committee, so the committee would have reviewed these comments as well. This one is quite long, so I'm going to summarize it. Frank and Margaret Scott have concerns with the flooding of the area, the wind and snow being accumulated on Fire Lane 2 and beyond, the southwest winds that swirl in the winter, and they also have concerns with the other 5 variance requests that they note in the application. James Lucky. I understand that the residents of 405 Pinecrest and Port Colborne have requested a minor variance to their property, which, if allowed, will be a structure 23 feet in height and will effectively block the existing view of Lake Erie from neighboring properties. The people of this area live here because of the lake and views that come with it. To obstruct these views, which have been enjoyed for years with a 23-foot high wall, would have a definite negative impact on the enjoyment of their properties. We respectfully request that your committee take this into effect during the deliberations of this matter. I also have comments from Ellen and Kathleen Daly. That's also a long comment, so I will withhold that if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. I will be able to answer any questions any committee members have about it. Leslie Krieger and Chuck Groom from 2400 Fire Lane 2 have concerns about the obstruction of the view of the lake, and say that the majority of the neighbors disapprove of the construction on a building that has already received approval for minor variances in the past. And that concludes the correspondence that I have.
All right, thank you. Can we bring in the applicant? Can you hear us, Mr. Tamayo?
Yep, can you hear me?
We can. Is there anything further you'd like to add at this point?
Just like to make you aware that I heard all the preamble. I'm not sure if I was supposed to be in a waiting room or not, but I've been here the whole time, just so you know.
Yeah. And you heard the readout of the staff recommendation and all the comments?
Yes. So what I would like to do is just go through the reports very quickly and the comments that were received by the residents, and then you can ask any questions you have of me. Is that fine?
Very good. Yes, continue.
Okay. So I've reviewed all three planning reports from the MPCA, the Region of Niagara, and the City of Port Colborne, supporting the proposed variances. As indicated in the City of Port Colborne planning staff report, the subject variances meet the 4 tests under Section 45, Subsection 1 of the Planning Act. We also concur with the recommendations and the conditions of all three planning reports, being the MPCA, Region of Niagara, and the City of Port Colborne. So we have no issue with the conditions. The second point I would like to make is that this meeting this application was adjourned as a result of Region of Niagara comments on the original application. So we paused. So in the meantime, we did receive approval for a new septic system, and we also received MPCA work permit for the new septic system. So those approvals are already in place and ready to go. So now moving to the neighbors, the 6 letters, I'll go through them quickly. Regarding the 2334 Fire Lane number 2, that resident is approximately 190 meters from the site. So I assume when they mean they're impacted or their vista is because they're walking, but from their property, I don't think they're impacted. Regarding 2156 Fire Lane number 2, that property is 455 meters view from the subject application. And 2552 Fire Lane 3 is approximately 260 meters, so I don't think they will be impacted either. Regarding the neighbor at 2483 Fire Lane, that was the one that Mr. Schultz didn't read out. I'll go through she had 6 concerns, and all 6 comments have been addressed. Number 1, regarding sedimentation fencing, that was a requirement by the region, and that will be installed prior to any construction. Number 2 was she was questioning if a septic system could be installed on the property. As I indicated, we already have approval for a new state-of-the-art septic system for the subject property. Number 3, regarding lake levels, these comments are addressed through MPCA and a work permit. So there is provisions in there in the conditions for certain construction materials to address this. And then number 4, regarding natural heritage and the features of the subject property. This is brought up in some of the other comments. The thing to remember here is that the proposed structure is being built on all disturbed lands around the pool. So we are not building any pool enclosure. The majority of the new addition is being built on an existing pad. So we're not disturbing any of the natural core heritage features. And that's why the region of Niagara did not require an EIS for this subject property, because we weren't encroaching on those core heritage lands. And then number 5, she had a concern about the lot size, and she mentioned lot C. That is in the ownership of the subject of the owner, and we've provided a proper deed to the city of Port Colborne, and we don't think this is an issue. And then the last comment is Mr. Scott, and it's once again about the view, and the view is a very difficult one because you don't own the view of someone else's property, and if it was a vacant lot, there eventually would be a building there. So that's a tricky one there. So in summary, I would just like to say that the subject variances meet the 4 tests. Number 1, it's minor in nature, it's appropriate for the site, and number 3, it's in compliance with the intent of the zoning bylaw, and the 4th test being in compliance with the general intent of the official plan. So we do meet the 4 tests. I'll leave it at that. If we have our solicitor here, if you could ask questions to both her and I, that would be great.
All right, thank you. Is there any members that wish to ask any questions at this time? Eric?
Yeah, through you, Chair, to our planner. In one of the comments, there was a mention of a 20, I don't know if they said feet or meters tall building, like the building will be that big. Wouldn't that require a minor variance in itself?
It was a 23 feet, the comment was. Because it's being attached to the house, everything is becoming the house now, essentially, in our definition of our zoning bylaw. And the height requirement for a dwelling in the LR zone is 11 meters, which works out to about 36 feet.
Okay. And I have another question as well. So in the recommendation from staff, so they're seeking a minimum front yard setback of 0.36 meters, whereas a minimum front yard setback right now is 10 meters. That seems to be like quite a big difference. Can you elaborate on that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Beauregard. The 0.36 meters is actually already for the existing, which was or is right now currently an accessory building. When you attach to that accessory building from the house, it becomes the house. So really, construction is not actually happening in that 0.36 meter setback. It'll be happening further back where the house is being attached to that accessory building.
Okay, thank you.
Does any other members have any questions? Angie, Donna? Donna?
Hi, I'd just like to say through you, Mr. Chair, I actually took a drive out there today. I'm very familiar with the property. I walked it probably close to 50 years ago with my children. I have family that lives around the corner, and I think the property is beautiful. The trees are beautiful, and I'm not sure how it's blocking the view. That's why I went to see, because the trees are so large and beautiful now that are there. I got out and walked around to try to imagine how the views could be, how they were impacting, because a lot of them are pine trees anyway, so they're there all year round. Is there any comment on it? I thought maybe I missed where I was supposed to be looking.
Thank you. As far as the view goes, I'm of the same opinion. I was out there on the weekend as well, and like I say, the view, if you go to the end of the street there, you go up to the lake and your view's still there. So I guess I concur. So, Any
That was what
other,
I kind of thought, Dan, too. I wasn't sure.
any other questions of the applicant? Angie, you good? The only thing, I do have a question, and I'll apologize in advance because I know you're a relatively new owner. There's a little bit of a history with variances and construction and everything with this property. And I'm not accusing or suggesting or anything with regards to this particular application. I do know in the past, and probably where some of the comments come from, variances were granted and then we found out afterwards they were exceeded and liberties were taken, and thus the number of applications that have come forward over the years. I will say that at one point on your drawing you show the overhang of the new pool enclosure coming to within, I think it's 0.2 meters of the property line. I fully understand that that overhang can go right to the property line, and quite frankly, when the modification to the boathouse was done, that same scenario was supposed to take place. And again, I'm not suggesting at all that you're going to do the same as the previous owner, but as you can see how that encroachment situation came into play last time, as they were building, they thought, oh, this would look nice if I just went a little bit farther, and then ended up under the encroaching on the city property. So I just will say that because of the previous history, should something like that happen again, I know in the past the committee, and I was on that committee back then, and there was multiple discussions over what should be done with that extension. It was already built at the time the application come forward, and quite frankly I was of the opinion that it should have been trimmed off back to the property line. I guess other people decided otherwise and it didn't get there. But anyway, I'm just forewarning you that there's, like I say, there's already enough scrutiny on this property from previous. And again, like I say, I'm not suggesting at all that you're the same as the previous owner, but I'm sure that will be something that will be watched. In this particular case, based on the way your drawings are, I don't think it should be an issue, but other than that, I'm a firm believer that you should be able to do within limits pretty much anything on your property that don't exceed grossly the requirements. So from that, I don't have any other comments. I know, similar to the some of the application or the comments that were provided to us via email about locations, and I see that both the MPCA and the region have both granted permits, so I will assume that all requirements will be addressed through them. And just in final, I guess, comments to this before we go to looking for a motion or any final comments from the applicant. One of the issues we've also ran into in the past is when we place conditions on variances, and maybe I can address this to the planner. Once a variance has been granted with conditions, I know we've had this property in the past, at what point do those conditions have to be met for the variance to be in place? And with those conditions in place, if one of those conditions stops being met, in the case here, I think it talks about some fencing to protect the sand, walls for uprush, and those kind of things. What happens in those cases? I realize the city then has bylaw enforcement to go and do that, but I know in the past we've put conditions on a property for a variance. Those conditions, quite frankly, were kind of met, then not met, then kind of met, then not met, and it just seemed to go around and around and around. So I guess, can you maybe just provide some clarity as to when the conditions need to be met with regards to the building permit and the ongoing continuation of those?
Yep. So for the most part, most of these conditions will have to be met before building permit issuance. So the planning division will not sign off on the building permit application until these conditions have been met. For the ones that could potentially cease in the future, if it ever comes to the attention of the City of Port Colborne Bylaw Enforcement Division or the Planning Division, we would enforce it as a violation of the zoning bylaw, because the variance would not be in effect anymore.
Very good. That's all I have. I don't know if the applicant, oh, I see Donna waving her hand there. Donna?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Dave. Just one question. On one of the letters, I noticed that one of the ladies was speaking regarding the sediment fencing, and I'm not sure, maybe I don't understand, but it almost sounded as if she thought it was going to be a permanent fixture. I thought that those were something that are put up during construction and they are removed. Am I wrong?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to be completely honest, I'm not an expert in sediment fencing, but from what I understand, it's just to protect the hill from collapsing.
And is it, oh, okay, so I don't know. I just wondered if maybe she needs a bit of clarification on that point. It might reassure her. That's all.
Thank you. Eric?
To your question earlier, Mr. Chair, doesn't the NPCA have its own enforcement to enforce some of the conditions that they are imposing on here?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Beauregard, yes, I believe they do. And I believe they actually have more power than the City of Port Colborne does through their Ontario regulation.
All right.
Thank you.
Since we don't have any members from the public here, and I don't think anyone's joined the meeting that wishes to speak to it, so do you have any final comments to make as the applicant?
No further comments.
Thank you. Does one of the members wish to move a motion? Eric?
Let me just get to it for a second. Resolution. So application A25-19-PC in the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990, chapter paragraph 13 as amended in section 11.3C and G of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended, and in the matter of the property legally known as plan of survey of part of the road allowance between lots 14 and 15, concession 1, Township of Humberstone, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 405 Pinecrest Road and located in the Lakeshore Residential Zone. And in the matter of an application by the agent, Joseph Tomeno, for the owners Anthony and Connie Zappatelli for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended under section 45 of the Planning Act RSO 1990, chapter paragraph 13, so as to permit in addition to an accessory building notwithstanding the following. 1. That a minimum front yard setback of 0.36 meters for an existing boathouse be permitted, whereas a minimum front yard setback of 10 meters is required. 2. That a minimum lot coverage of 18.1% be permitted, whereas a maximum lot coverage of 15% is required. The minor variance application minor variance A25-19-PC be approved for the following reasons. 1. Minor in nature, as the front yard setback is being recognized for an existing structure that has previously been approved, and the increase in lot coverage is a reasonable and measured request. 2. Appropriate for development of the site since the proposed construction is located in a suitable location on the site, given the irregular shape of the lot. 3. Desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as residential uses are permitted in the Lakeshore Residential Zone. 4. Desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as residential uses are permitted in areas with the rural designation. Subject to the following conditions. 1. That the owner enters into an encroachment license agreement with the City of Port Colborne for the existing encroachment and fulfills all conditions of the agreement and encroachment bylaw 6665/29/19. 2. That a survey prepared by an Ontario land surveyor be submitted with the building permit application indicating the existing structures and setbacks of each structure to the property lines and each other. 3. That the variance is permitted only for an addition of a patio, not a sitting room as outlined on the region's septic approval. 4. That sediment and erosion control fencing be installed along the eastern property line, brackets adjacent to the location for the proposed garage, close bracket, through the building permit application. 5. That the entrance on the city right-of-way be reduced to 7.3 meters. 6. That the landowner obtains a work permit from the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority prior to beginning any work related to development or site alteration. In support of the work permit application, the following information will be required. A detailed site plan showing means are provided to mitigate the wave uprush hazard for the sitting room, brackets, i.e. shutters installed in the windows, close bracket. B, means are provided to mitigate the 100-year flood hazard for the sitting room, bracket, i.e. no openings are constructed within the structure below the regulatory 100-year flood elevation and safe access/egress is provided, close bracket. C, safety concerns due to the flood hazard are addressed for the covered patios. D, flood proofing is incorporated into the design of the pool enclosure.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder? Angie? Any questions or comments on the motion? I'm not seeing any. I will say that on item 6, or condition 6, since the sitting room is not being allowed, do we need conditions A and B? They both pertain to the uprush of the sitting room and provisions to mitigate the 100-year flood hazard of the sitting room. Can we strike those two?
Yeah, I believe so. Those comments did come in. Sorry. I believe we can, because those comments did come in before they applied for that septic permit under those conditions that they had before. So,
okay. Can I ask for a friendly amendment to the motion, Angie? Good with that?
Yeah,
Eric?
I'll move that.
Eric, you good with that?
Yes.
Okay. So with that, any other questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Thank you. Now, I will say just before the applicants leave, being that we're in uncertain times here with this waiting period, is it still a 20-day waiting period for someone to make an objection to it?
yes, it's still 20 days from when the notice of decision is
Okay.
mailed.
So if I'm assuming if no one makes any requests for complaint about the decision, then you'll be granted your permit. Otherwise, I don't know when or how long or how quickly they go through that stage. But anyway, just so you're aware of that. So there is a 20-day waiting period, but other than that, you're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just before we go to the next one, do you need the page to go with that, or with the second, or you got that for the minutes? Okay.
Do you want to add that? I always forget to have that.
About the comments?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just give you my page. I already wrote it down.
Before we go to the next one, Eric, where did you find the approval piece that you just wrote out? Because I have two reduced documents, and one doesn't seem to have it. The other one maybe does. Maybe I pulled the wrong one down.
I'm not sure which reduced document I'm looking at, but I just went into bookmarks and I looked under A25 resolution and just read that out.
All right, I'll see if I can find it. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
All right, with that, Mr. Secretary, the next application, please.
Application number A1-20-PC for the property known as 89 Franklin Avenue. In the matter of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13 as amended, and Section 2.82A of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575-3018 as amended, and in the matter of the premises known as Plan 38 Lot 3, NP 870, municipally known as 89 Franklin Avenue, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, and located in the R1 First Density Residential Zone. And in the matter of an application by the agent Steve Greenwood on behalf of the owners Donald and Pauline Bennett for relief from the provisions of the zoning bylaw 6575-3018 as amended under Section 45 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, so as to permit the construction of an accessory building notwithstanding the following: that a maximum accessory lot coverage of 14% be permitted, whereas accessory lot coverage shall not exceed 10%. The applicant is requesting permission to build a 62.7 meters squared accessory building in the rear yard of the property. Due to the size of the accessory building, relief from the zoning bylaw is required. We do have correspondence from the planning division. Planning staff has reviewed the referenced application and offer the following comments for the hearing. Notice was circulated on May 25th, 2020, and no written correspondence has been received at the time of this comment. Notice was also circulated to agencies and departments of the city of Port Colborne. The engineering department commented that it is recommended that a grading plan be submitted with the application, the building permit application, that is, to ensure that the garage will not affect the drainage of the neighbors. And from the planning division, the application, the increase in accessory building lot coverage is not anticipated to impact the neighboring properties. Staff are recommending that a lot grading plan be submitted with the building permit application to ensure neighboring properties are not impacted. Staff finds this application to be minor in nature. The proposed accessory building is located in the rear yard and is within the setback requirements of the zoning bylaw. No land use conflicts are expected to arise from the variance. Staff finds this variance application to be desirable for the appropriate development of the property. The zoning bylaw permits accessory structures to be located in the rear yard of the property, so long as they are 1 meter away from the side and rear lot lines. Staff finds this variance application complies with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The official plan permits residential uses in the urban residential designation. Staff finds this variance application complies with the general intent and purpose of the official plan. Therefore, planning staff recommends minor variance application A1-20-PC be granted for the following reasons. 1, it is minor in nature as the increase in accessory building lot coverage is a reasonable and measured request. 2, appropriate for the development of the site since the proposed accessory building is located in a suitable location on site. 3, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw as accessory buildings are permitted in the first density residential zone. 4, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan as accessory uses are permitted in areas within the urban residential designation, subject to the following condition. 1, that a lot grading plan be included in the building permit application to the satisfaction of the engineering department and the drainage superintendent. Signed, David Schultz, planner. Signed and reviewed by Dan Aquilina, Director of Planning and Development.
Thank you.
That concludes the correspondence.
Thank you. Is the applicant online? I see him on there. Can you just unmute your mic and confirm you can hear us and we can hear you?
I can hear you.
Perfect. Is there anything further you'd like to add at this time?
Yes, if I could just make a comment.
Yes, you can.
So if the motion were to be passed, I'd like to make a comment with respect to the engineering department. The recommendation for a grading plan to be submitted with the application to ensure that the garage will not affect the drainage of the neighbors. I was wondering if I could possibly make a substitution offer to the engineering department and if they would listen to the substitution and take it in. That would be to possibly show downspouts and directing them to the existing the building drain, or sorry, storm drain that is actually located just north of the property, a couple feet on the north side of the property line. The proposed building will be about 10 feet away from this storm drain. And in respect to that, we'd also like to see if they would accept a letter or a short brief from an Ontario land surveyor to attest that the new proposed garage will not adversely affect any drainage in the neighboring properties.
With that being asked, I can't comment on behalf of the engineering department. What all entails having a lot grading plan, if you put all of those proposals together to them, that might be suitable for them. Swales, other things. I guess the key part of it is to make sure that you don't all of a sudden start flooding out your neighbors when there's a torrential downpour and rainy season and so on and so forth. I'm sure if you come up with some plan to mitigate that, most of the staff members are pretty willing to work with our residents, so I'm sure you can come up with something that makes sense, that's easily obtainable, that can be accommodated, I'm sure. with that being said, does any of the other committee members have any questions for the applicant? Eric?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to our planner, is this lot grading plan a typical sort of condition that we impose on these type of building permit applications?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Beauregard. A lot grading plan is typically something that's required for the construction of a dwelling, just larger buildings in general. Due to the size of this building, the engineering department requested that one be submitted with its application as well.
Any other questions of the applicant? Angie, Donna? Not seeing any. Do you have any final comments, Mr. Greenwood? I see you shaking your head no, but I couldn't hear you, so I'll assume it's no. With that being said, could I get a mover and a seconder for a recommendation, Angie?
I would like to move it. So application A0120 PC in the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990 C P13 as amended, and section 2.8.2A of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575 3018 as amended, and in the matter of the premises known as Plan 38 Lot 3 NP 870, municipally known as 89 Franklin Avenue, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, and located in the R1 First Density Residential Zone. And in the matter of an application by the agent Steve Greenwood on behalf of owners Donald and Pauline Bennett for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575 3018 as amended under section 45 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13 so as to permit the construction of accessory building notwithstanding the following. One, that a maximum accessory lot coverage of 14% be permitted, whereas accessory lot coverage of coverage shall not exceed 10%. That the minor variance A0120 PC be granted for the following reasons. One, minor nature, as the increase in accessory lot building coverage, building lot coverage is a reasonable and measured request. Two, appropriate for the development of the site, since the proposed accessory building is located in a suitable location on the site. Three, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as accessory buildings are permitted in the first density residential zone. Four, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as accessory uses are permitted in areas with the urban residential designation. Subject to the following condition. One, that a lot grading plan be included in the building permit application to the satisfaction of the engineering department and drainage superintendent. Dated at the City of Port Colborne, this 9th day of June, 2020.
Thank you. Can I find a seconder for that motion? Donna? Any questions or comments? Eric?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to move an amendment that the subject to the following condition that I'm trying to figure out a way to word this. Subject to the following condition that upon approval of the engineering department, where the applicant submits those documents that he mentioned, so that would be a letter from a surveyor, land surveyor. And what was the other thing that the applicant mentioned? Can someone help me with this?
If I can, just to show control with the proper downspouts in the direction of the existing storm drain.
Okay. What he just said there. So it would be subject to the following condition: a letter from the land surveyor, what the downspout issue, and if the engineering department does not approve that, then a lot grading plan must be submitted. Does that make sense?
David, did you get all of that?
I was just trying to think, like, we could word it that a lot grading plan or similar documentation be submitted to the satisfaction of the engineering department. Would that satisfy?
Okay. Does the applicant have any questions about that wording?
I think effectively, we just need to make sure engineering is happy at the end of the day. So as David has outlined with that, that sounds sufficient.
Okay, then I'm happy with that as well.
Angie and Donna, you okay with that friendly amendment?
Could you repeat what the amendment would be, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Subject to the following condition, that a lot grading plan or similar documentation be included in the building permit application, subject to the satisfaction of the engineering department and the drainage superintendent.
That works for me.
Thank you. Donna, you okay with that?
I'm good with that.
All right, very good. So with that, all in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Thank you. And Mr. Greenwood, the same as the previous application, if you heard, there is a 20-day waiting period, so you do have to wait for that. But I believe you can prepare all your documents, so that way when you hit your 20 days, if there's no objections, you're off to the races.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. David, whenever you're ready with the next application.
Application A02-20-PC regarding 21 Canal Bank Road. In the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13 as amended and Section 2.8.1 AII and Section 6 of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575-3018 as amended, and in the matter of the premises known as Lot 7 on Plan 3252, municipally known as 21 Canal Bank Road, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, and located in the R2 Second Density Residential Zone. And in the matter of an application by the agent, Frank Danch, on behalf of the owner, Jason Danch, for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575-3018 as amended under Section 45 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP13, so as to permit the expansion of a legal non-conforming accessory building prior to the construction of a dwelling, notwithstanding the following. 1, that a maximum height of 6 meters be permitted, whereas no accessory building shall exceed a height of 4.6 meters. The applicant is requesting permission for the expansion of the existing legal non-conforming accessory building use in the second residential zone. The property currently has an existing legal non-conforming standalone garage, which is proposed to be demolished. Due to the proposed size and height of the new garage, the minor variance is required. We have correspondence from the Planning Division. Planning staff has reviewed the referenced application and offered the following comments for the hearing. A notice was circulated on May 25th to adjacent property owners, and no written correspondence has been received as of the date of this comment being prepared. Notice was circulated to the agencies and the city departments on May 25th, and the following correspondence has been received as of the date of writing this comment. The engineering department recommends that a lot grading plan be submitted with the building permit application. Due to the condition that the house is going to be built eventually on this property, the engineering department is suggesting that the grading plan include the house as well, just to get it all done at once. So the planning division, the variance is required to permit the expansion of the legal non-conforming use on the property. Staff has verified that the building has legal non-conforming status. In addition to the expansion request, the applicant would like to construct the building at a height of 6 meters where 4.6 meters is required. Staff has used the accessory building height requirement in this case as the owner has indicated he would like to proceed with a single detached dwelling on the property in the near future. The owner would like to store tools and various materials related to the construction of the dwelling in the garage. Once the dwelling is constructed, the garage will become an accessory building, and the dwelling must comply with the accessory building. The garage will become an accessory building to the dwelling and must comply with the accessory building provisions of the zoning bylaw. Mentioned above are the policies listed in the official plan and zoning bylaw that shall be satisfied when requesting an expansion or change of a legal non-conforming use. This application has met all of these requirements. Given the lack of adverse comments received from neighboring property owners and applicable agencies, staff conclude with the opinion that the expansion in the legal non-conforming use will not lead to any negative impacts. Therefore, the Department of Planning and Development recommends approval of minor variance application A02-20-PC for the following reasons. 1, it is minor in nature, as the expansion of the legal non-conforming use and increase in height will not result in adverse impacts to the neighboring properties. 2, it is appropriate for the development of the site, since legal non-conforming use will be located in an appropriate area on the site. 3, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as the requirements listed in regard to legal non-conforming uses are satisfied. 4, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as the policies listed in regard to legal non-conforming uses are satisfied. Subject to the following conditions: 1, that a lot grading plan be included with the building permit application, including both the proposed garage and the future dwelling to the satisfaction of the engineering department and the drainage superintendent. And 2, that the existing garage on the property be demolished. Signed, David Schultz, planner, reviewed and submitted by Dan Kalina, Director of Planning and Development. That concludes the correspondence.
Thank you. The applicant, I can see him. Can we hear him? And can you hear us?
We've been listening for the last hour. Yeah, we're listening in. Thank you.
All right. Do you have anything further to add at this time?
No, other than the 20-day waiting period, I'm not really in favor of that, just due to what's gone on recently with the COVID and stuff like that. It's really slowed down the potential for the early build. I've got tradespeople lined up to get going. I'd like to see this 20-day thing waived and maybe go to a 7-day just to get things on the move here. You can see my son next to me. He is here now, and we'd like to get this going. That's my only comment. I've pretty much seen all you guys last night, so whatever you can do for us, David, it'd be appreciated. Thanks for your time.
I will say, with regards to the 20-day waiting period, unfortunately, that's above our pay grade here at the Committee of Adjustment. It's a provincial requirement. So unfortunately, we can't give you any relief on that. But I think, Angie, you had a question?
No, actually, Dan, you beat me to it. That was my question: is do we have the authority to do it? But okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions of the applicant?
Well, if we raised your pay, do you think it would happen a little bit quicker? Is that what we're looking for?
Do you want to try it out? We'll see.
It would have to be a pay in an election, I think. So with that being said, does anyone can move the motion? Donna?
Application A0220-PC in the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13 as amended, and Section 2.8 1A and 2 and Section 6 of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 657530/18 as amended, and in the matter of premises known as Lot 7 on Plan 3252, municipally known as 21 Canal Bank Road, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, and located in the R2 Second Density Residential Zone. And in the matter of an application by the agent Frank Danch on behalf of the owner Jason Danch for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended under Section 45 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13, so as to permit the expansion of a legal non-conforming accessory building prior to the construction of a dwelling, notwithstanding the following. 1, that a maximum height of 6 meters be permitted, whereas no accessory building shall exceed a height of 4.6 meters. And then that the minor variance application A0220-PC be granted for the following reasons. It is minor in nature, as the expansion of the legal non-conforming use and increase in height will not result in adverse impacts to neighboring properties. Appropriate for development of the site, since the legal non-conforming use will be located in an appropriate area on site. Number 3, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purposes of the zoning bylaw, as the requirements listed in regard to legal non-conforming uses is satisfied. Desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as the policies listed in regard to legal non-conforming uses are satisfied. It's subject to the following conditions: that a lot grading plan be included in the building permit application, including both the proposed garage and future dwelling, to the satisfaction of the engineering department and the drainage superintendent. Number 2, that the existing garage on the property be demolished.
Thank you. We get a seconder for that. Angie, any questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Be carried. Thank you.
Good night, Frank.
Have fun building.
Yeah, thanks. In 20 days. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.
And David, the last application, please.
Application number B02-20-PC for the property legally known as 1-3 Apollo Drive. In the matter of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter CP13, Section 53-1, and in the matter of the property legally known as Lot 53 on Plan 59M-150, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 1-3 Apollo Drive. And in the matter of an application by the agent Jose Dopaco for the owner 1916671 Ontario Inc. for a severance under Section 53-1 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13, so as to permit the conveyance of Part 2 having a lot frontage of 9.01 meters with a total lot area of 329.7 square meters for an existing semi-detached residential use. Part 1 will retain a lot frontage of 9.01 meters on Apollo Drive with a lot area of 329.3 square meters for an existing semi-detached residential use. We have correspondence from the Planning Division. Notice was circulated on May 22nd and no written correspondence has been received from the public. Notice was also circulated to the agencies and city departments and no written correspondence has been received. The Planning Division has some comments. The application satisfies all the requirements for a consent in the city's official plan, and consents are also permitted in the residential zone. They would like to conclude with staff has no concerns with the consent to sever the semi-detached dwelling. Given that the proposed severance conforms to the City of Port Colborne official plan and zoning bylaw, staff recommends approval of the application. Planning staff recommends consent application B02-20-PC be granted subject to the following conditions. 1, that the applicant provides the Secretary Treasurer with the deeds and triplicate for conveyance of the subject parcel or a registrable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a paper and digital copy of the deposited reference plan, if applicable, for use in the issuance of the certificate of consent. And 2, that a final certification fee of $208 payable to the City of Port Colborne be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer for the following reasons. 1, the application conforms to the policies of the Regional Official Plan, City of Port Colborne Official Plan, and the provisions of Zoning Bylaw 6575-3018 as amended. And 2, this decision is rendered having regard to the provisions of subsection 5124 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP13, signed David Schultz, planner with the City of Port Colborne, and reviewed by Dan Aquilina, Director of Planning and Development. That concludes the correspondence.
Thank you. I see the applicant there. Can you hear us? And if you can add anything further you'd like to add at this time? Oh, still can't hear you.
Is the phone unmuted?
Needs to unmute.
There we go.
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
You got to turn your speaker off on your computer.
Okay. Hello? I can hear you now.
It's his computer and his phone together that's causing the problem. Do you have your phone on speakerphone? If you take your phone off of speakerphone, it might be better. Perfect.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay. Is there anything further you'd like to add at this time?
No, not really.
Okay. Does any members have any questions of the applicant? Not seeing any. Someone would like to make a motion to... No, Eric? Donna? Donna.
In application B0220-PC, in the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990, Chapter P13, Section 53(1), and in the matter of the property legally known as Lot 53 and Plan 59M150, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 1-3 Apollo Drive. And in the matter of an application by the agent Joso Dupaco for the owner 1916671 Ontario Inc. for a severance under Section 53(1) of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13, so as to permit the conveyance of Part 2 having a lot frontage of 9.01 meters, 29.6 feet, with a total lot area of 329.7 meters squared for an existing semi-detached residential use. Part 1 will retain a lot frontage of 9.01, 29.6 square feet on Apollo Drive with a lot area of 329.3 meters squared for an existing semi-detached residential use. That the application B0220PC be granted subject to the following conditions. That the applicant provides the Secretary Treasurer with the deeds in triplicate for the conveyance of the subject parcel or a registrable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a paper and digital copy of the deposited reference plan, if applicable, for use in the issuance of the certificate of consent. That a final certification fee of $208 payable to the City of Port Colborne be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer for the following reasons. Number 1, the application conforms to the policies of the Regional Official Plan, City of Port Colborne Official Plan, and also complies with the provisions of Zoning Bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended. Number 2, this decision is rendered having regard for the provisions of subsection 5124 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13.
Thank you. I get a seconder to that. Angie. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Thank you. And same with you. There's a 20-day waiting period, but other than that, you can proceed with the all the other paperwork in the meantime.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes our applications this evening. I'm just going to ask if there's any other business of the members on the line. Donna?
Hi, through Dan. I'd just like to ask a question. I visited this property today, the one that we just had the severance on. I just do kind of a drive-by to see where everything is. And I was having a hard time looking at my computer because of the sun to see it. Anyway, the young woman who lives there came out and she was a little bit upset because I was sitting in front of her house. So I apologized. I told her who I was and I was there and the sign was up and everything in front of the house. She hadn't been told anything about this. She said that she had a bit of a confrontation with the person who put the sign up from the city and they didn't tell her anything. She didn't really feel she knew anything. And I know, it was just lack of knowledge to So I just said to her that, yes, there was some things going through. She was a bit upset about her landlord, and I didn't want to say anything. So I just said to her that there were things going through. And I said, I don't think it has any effect on you. I said, she talked about the neighbor, and I said, maybe we're just looking at trying to square up, kind of looking at lot lines. I didn't say too much to her, but I said I didn't feel there was anything for her to be concerned about. She was more upset about the fact that this was happening, and that she's had a couple people, I don't know if anyone else went by her house, but that she felt that she should have been notified. Do tenants have to be notified when, or should they be by landlords when this is happening? Anything like this?
I'll let David comment if he wants, but I will say that, first of all, it shouldn't have been the city putting up the sign. It would have been the applicant or someone on behalf of the applicant.
Oh, so perhaps it was. I may have misunderstood her, but she didn't say it was her. She didn't seem to know who the man was.
Yeah.
If I can jump in here, Mr. Chair. I did deliver the sign to them. I met the property owner at the property. I did not post the sign, but I did meet them there, which is maybe why she was getting a little confused there. And just to answer your question about the ownership of the property being notified. So only in our tax system, and the Planning Act only requires the owner to be notified of the property, of the notice, because that's the only information we have on record. You could go rent out your house tomorrow, and we wouldn't have any information on who's living there at the time. So that's the only reason. It is recommended that, say, a big condo building, that a condo developer with a certain amount of units, it is recommended that they do circulate to their owners as well, just so it is they can participate.
Well, I didn't say it to her, but she could have read it and tried to figure out the application. I wasn't sure. She just caught me off guard because I've never had that before, and I thought perhaps I just wasn't sure but I thought it would be up to the owner of the property to notify them, just to let them know something was going on. Maybe, yeah, Eric, maybe you can help us.
Eric?
Sorry. Just to add to that, I mean, I've reviewed the Residential Tenancies Act quite a bit, and I don't see anything under there where a landlord or would be obligated by any means to do that. And to be honest, the public hearing notice is right on the has to be out there for this for that purpose, to let people who are interested parties know about it, so they can ask the city about it or get the information they need. So, I mean, I think that it was just bad planning on the tenant.
Well, it doesn't sound like she had a great relationship with her landlord, so I wondered. So I just kind of smoothed the waters, and I think she just didn't understand it all. But she was fine by the time I left, and but I guess she also mentioned the fact of COVID, and she had a little camera up at her door, and she told me that she had put that up after, I guess, David, you and the landlord were there, because she was feeling like people are coming there and putting up a sign, and she felt she didn't know what was going on, and she was a bit concerned. But anyway, yeah, I know. But anyway, she calmed down, and I explained to her the process, and I said, it's probably just about lot lines, legalities, different things, and she was okay with that.
Eric?
Thank you.
On a different matter, I would like to say, while we're still conducting this committee meeting, I felt like I was in a pretty interesting position when Frank was acting as an agent. It almost felt like it may be considered a conflict of interest, not under the Conflict of Interest Act, but more under the Statutory Powers and Procedures Act in terms of procedural fairness. So it felt as if maybe there's a little bit of a conflict there in terms of impartiality on behalf of the councillors. So I just I didn't know if it was enough, and I didn't feel like declaring it or saying anything at the time, but it seemed to be an interesting position, to say the least.
Just to that point, if I might, the one thing, and whether it's a fellow councillor or an applicant, and maybe a little bit goes to what Donna's experience was as well. The one thing that, as a committee member, you have to be very, very cognizant of is to not discuss applications once you're aware of them with the applicant or anyone else for that matter, other than to say, there's an application, there's the sign. If you have questions, comments, concerns, contact City Hall. give them the contact information. But as far as engaging individuals, but be it a tenant, be it the owner, be it anybody, be it a counselor, pushing for a resident or constituent in their riding. I have said multiple times in the past about our committee and our structure of how it's set up with regards to the counselors being on here. The whole purpose of having the Committee of Adjustment is to get council away from that potential conflict. With that being said, this is the makeup that we have, and as long as everyone stays impartial and follows by those rules, then it should work out fine. But anyway, just to be cognizant of that. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Donna?
That was exactly, when you were talking there, Dan, I thought when Frank was asking about not having the 20 days, I was sitting there saying, I'm not voting for that one. So I hear you.
All right. Anybody else? Going once, going twice? Can I have a mover and a seconder for the minutes of our February 11th, 2020 meeting? Angie, Donna, all in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Motion to adjourn. Angie, Eric, all in favor? That'll be carried. Thank you, and we'll try this again next month. I don't know if we'll be virtual or not, but the month after, we don't have any for next month at the moment. Okay.
We're allowed to have 10 people now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that's
How do
true
we
too.
sign the papers though?
well, I guess it'll be a first come, first serve unless you run into a conflict and we have to work that scenario out. But I think if we stay with this format, it worked out pretty well today. So with that, since we've had the motion to adjourn and we have voted, we'll see you all later, and that concludes our meeting for this evening. Thank you.
All right, see you all.